Here's a quote by Norman Vincent Peale to get us started, and it is this: "It's always too soon to quit." And I think this is a helpful quote, actually, to get us started today, because, sometimes when we are struggling with OCD, maybe you're doing ERP or acceptance commitment therapy or whatever approach you're taking to try to manage it, and there's frustrations that come up. Even if you're learning something like mindfulness or meditation, there are frustrations, there's annoyances. These things can be very difficult at times when you're trying to learn to manage something like OCD. OCD is very good. It's a trickster. It's very sneaky. It knows how to come up with new ways to trap you. New ideas or obsessions seem to pop out of nowhere when you think you finally defeated something that you've been struggling with for a long time. And so, OCD can be very good at taking away our hope and creating that sense of bewilderment, a sense of, how am I ever going to be able to do this? Is the approach that I'm taking actually going to work? Maybe it's worked for other people. It's not going to work for me. I can't do this. It's very, very easy to get caught up in that mindset. In fact, I was in that mindset myself for many years. In my 20s, I was so frustrated with OCD, not knowing that I had it at that time. And getting stuck in the cycle of OCD, it really took away my hope altogether at that time. I felt exhausted, frustrated, very, very anxious all the time, getting stuck in my thoughts, going around in circles, trying to have certainty, and not knowing what any of this meant. Not knowing that I had OCD made it an incredibly frustrating thing, because a lot of the time I was just trying to figure out, well, what's actually wrong? What is the problem here? And it takes up so much of your energy when you're doing that kind of thing. Eventually, when I did figure out that it was OCD, obviously that was a really helpful step for me. And then I started to learn about the different approaches that I could take. And this was a time of some renewed hope, having kind of figured out what the issue was, and then finding the relevant material and the relevant things to help me. Of course, on some level, that did make me feel a bit better. But on another, I started to get frustrated with the different approaches that were available to me to try to help to deal with, because a lot of the time it felt like they weren't actually working. And, I might be applying things and not actually seeing any results. And that was really annoying, and sometimes really almost kind of more anxiety inducing, because you think that you're doing the right work. You're doing the things that you're meant to be doing in order to start feeling better, but you're not really getting the results that you think you should be getting. And this can be a really confusing and kind of almost anger-inducing time if you're not careful, if we get too caught up in the moment here with this kind of thing. The reality is, when you're learning new skills and you're trying to apply a different approach to something like OCD, it isn't something that you can just do straight away and that's it. Now you're going to feel better and you're going to get the results. It is something that you need to be applying over an extended period of time, in order for you to start really seeing the benefits of the approach. Sometimes you can get very quickly improvements, and you can see, okay, wow, if I do this, then I take control and I do feel a bit better. And you begin to make progress, but then you might have a setback, and that can be annoying and frustrating. But it is a part of the process. And I think sometimes, though, one of the issues is that we don't necessarily want to get started because we're not seeing initially that there's any improvements coming from maybe what we're doing, or we haven't really committed to it enough yet in order for us to see those improvements. And so if you're in that place where you are perhaps more hopeful than you were because you're seeing, okay, if I apply these things, then supposedly I will start to improve. However, you haven't seen that yet for yourself. You don't yet have that evidence that really works, and maybe you're questioning the whole thing. Maybe you have been applying it, but perhaps you haven't quite done it in the right kind of way, or maybe your perspective on it hasn't been the most helpful, and so you haven't quite yet seen the feedback that you're looking for. Maybe you're beginning to doubt yourself. Maybe you're questioning the process. Maybe you're thinking that you're never going to do this. And my message today is that I don't think that's true. Certainly in my case, I did feel a little bit like that when I first started to try to apply techniques like acceptance commitment therapy and exposure, because it's very hard to learn to bring acceptance to things. I think I remember one day when I was working at a shop that I was really struggling with the OCD, with the anxiety. I had been for a while, but I had just learned about mindfulness and this idea of bringing acceptance to difficult emotions. And I was really at such a difficult place at that time. I thought, well, I just have to give this a go. I'd only read about it in a book. I hadn't received this information from a podcast or from anybody who had OCD. I didn't know anybody who had OCD. Again, I didn't even know myself that I had OCD. So I was just trying to stumble around in the darkness and try different things, try to figure it out. And I did notice that when I tried to bring a little bit more acceptance to the anxiety, that it did help me a little bit in that moment. And from there I did kind of develop that skill, but it was a very difficult time. There was lots of moments where I convinced myself again that approach doesn't work. That trying to bring acceptance to something like OCD and anxiety is pointless. It's not really a strategy that is going to help enough in the long term. And actually, I needed some different approach, something else that was actually just going to completely take away the OCD. Of course, not realizing that isn't reality at all. But I just didn't know that at that time. And, I was kind of so tired and so exhausted of dealing with OCD all the time, that all I wanted is for it to be gone. I kind of wanted that uncertainty to be out of my life, that anxiety to not be there anymore and to just feel good. And, I completely relate to you if you're kind of feeling that way at times. I guess my message is as well that, if you can hold on in these moments and try to take a step back and realize that having something like OCD is incredibly hard. It's incredibly challenging. And in order for us to really improve, we do need to be patient with ourselves. We do need to be kind with ourselves, and we do need to try to have hope. And it's really just making that conscious choice to say, okay, I don't quite know yet if these things are going to work for me, but the only way I'm going to find that out is actually by trying to consistently apply them to my life, even if the results I get are inconsistent. The only way I'm ever going to really know which things work for me is through trial and error, actually getting out there and just trying, the different approaches, whatever that might be. Of course, if you can work with a therapist or somebody to help you with that, that is, of course, always going to be the best way that you can do it. But just by stepping out there and taking some action, looking at the tools that are available, ERP, acceptance commitment therapy, different approaches that focus around mindfulness skills, relaxation techniques, whether you're doing other things as well, no matter what it is, you've got to give that approach some time. You've got to try to sit down and Give it a real go. Get started with it. And you may be surprised when you do that at what you can actually achieve. Just a quick reminder that if you want to get a free session, all you need to do to get that is to head over to my website, www.robertjamescoaching.com. And there you can leave me a message and we can arrange the free session. And now just a quick reminder of my disclaimer. Any information that you view on my website, Instagram page, Facebook group, or anywhere else online, or any information that you listen to on the podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for actual medical or mental health advice from a doctor, psychologist, or any other medical or mental health professional.